chemistry? All my roommates can bio majors. I was the only one that wasn't. But all I heard for 1 year was organic chemistry, organic chemistry, organic chemistry. And it basically determined whether somebody was going to medical school or not. If you didn't do organic chemistry, you were done. You end up having to go into, I don't know, sociology or something. Hello, sir.
Hi.
All right, let's start. So if you remember last week, we started on verb constructions.
Are we recording, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe we are. And specifically, we start with the verb tense that we most often would start with when it comes to the Coptic language, and that is the perfect tense or the past tense. And what we learned is that a number of tenses in Coptic are indicated with what's called a marker. Okay? And usually, the marker comes first. Okay? So for instance, I'll give you other examples just on the side of other tenses that we'll eventually learn in 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a little longer. Actually, probably about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. For instance, there is this whole thing is, so if you notice, this marker is one letter, it's the alpha. And that tells you that whatever that person is doing is in the past. Simple as that. Okay? This marker, okay, or actually, I'll do another one first. This marker is actually 2 letters. Sha. And then you have the actor who, or whoever it is, we'll go over these in a minute, telling you who is actually doing the thing. And what is this marker, or what is this tense? This tells you that a person is habitually doing something. They keep on doing it. So for instance,
Like
Sha.
that continues?
yeah, continuously, like it's like on a regular basis. So for instance, here is the 2 letters, Sha, and then, do you remember what this letter? This is for which person? Do you remember?
What this letter is?
Ah, again, I need to remind you of this. Okay, then let's start over again.
It's for he.
Exactly, it's for he. Let's start over again. So we learned that in the verbs, the verb construction comes in 3 parts. That's why it's called a tripartite construction. El alpha, and then the person who is doing the action, and then the verb itself. Okay? So for instance, and as far as the actor is concerned, it can be expressed in 2 ways. You can either say it's a noun, or a person. For instance, T is himi, the woman. Or you can say he, she, they, him, etc. He, she, you, I.
يعني
And then
pronoun.
the pronouns.
ممكن الاسم ولا pronoun بس يعني
ممكن الاسم. But it could be a name, or that's a good question. It could be a name, it could be a noun, or it could be a pronoun. What's a pronoun? The pronoun is هو he, she, I, الضمير الشخصي. Okay? And how do we express pronouns in Coptic? This is what we went over in lesson 8. If I wanted to say I,
ka
and then ka is you, or E is for a woman, or F, or S, or N, or 10.
E or re for woman.
Is there R?
Ah, it's re. That's right. Yeah, yeah,
No, isn't it with an A?
Yeah.
Combined?
yeah. Sorry?
Isn't it like with
Okay.
an alpha combined?
Yes, yes.
It's not like it's one word. It's one.
Yeah, it's all combined. I'll show you right now. 10 or the upsilon. So what you do is, if you want to say you want to say you, for instance, you would combine this letter with this and the verb. For example,
Yes.
ak moshi. what does this construction tell you? This is all one word. This tells you it's in the past tense.
You walk.
And who is doing it?
The mask.
You are, masculine you. And what are they doing?
Walk.
They're walking. So, ak moshi, you walked. Past tense. Okay?
Okay, but if you put the shak mushi,
Okay, so we'll get to that in a minute. I jumped ahead when I shouldn't have.
right?
Okay, so for instance, how about af moshi? Oops, af moshi.
She?
He. How about us moshi? She.
You're too fast. استني شوي.
شيء بالراحة.
She.
تعبان من دور.
It's right in front of her. She has it on the
I
table.
have it.
It's all in here.
برضه.
It's all right here.
أيوة.
It's all here. You need it, man. طب خدي اهو.
I have it from Shazakut Extra. I have it everywhere. Couldn't find it in the morning.
All right. So this is how you express the verb with pronouns. Okay. What if you wanted to say that a man walked? So instead of the pronoun, you plug in the noun.
أقا. أنيو.
You want to say the man. So instead of that, you would go P
Rumi.
Romi. A Piromi Moshi. And this is all one word.
I learned this one.
معلش ممكن تقول رومي اللي هي إيه؟
There shouldn't be. Realistically or practically, in modern printed editions, you'll see a space here. Oftentimes.
ممكن برومي اللي هي إيه؟
اللي هو رجل.
ذم.
So instead of saying he walked, اللي هو of Moshi, instead of this, you can put in a noun. That's why Rehan was saying it looks like an equation. That's true because you're plugging in something. Here's first part, second part, third part. Instead of Moshi, you can say Sotim. Sotim means to hear, to listen. You can put in Saji. Saji means to speak. So you plug in different verbs, you can plug in different people. This always stays. The alpha always stays. Okay?
So what becomes the one word? Piromi is one word, or everything is one word?
Technically, everything is one word. That's what's called a tripartite. It's 3 parts to the word. But when you print it in editions now, oftentimes you see apiromi by itself, and then the verb by itself
Space and the
sometimes.
verb, but,
Yeah.
but the proper things, they are all.
Exactly, it's
with
all
no
one word.
spaces. Okay.
So when we start reading things together, I'll make sure that the sentences have the entire thing together. That way, you'll be able to recognize it. More often than not, you don't see a piromi moshi. What you see is, oftentimes you're going to see of moshi. I'll write it in black so it's clear. Of moshi. He walked. But if you wanted to specify who is doing the walking, the man walked. This is what I want to get to next. There's a way to do it in Coptic that's different than what we just talked about. But it's equally valid. So we already know that you can say a tishimi moshi. The woman walked. You have the noun in the middle. You can say instead, for regardless of who it is, of moshi. And this is part of lesson 8 that I wanted to get to today. You can say in Coptic who did the walking by expressing it after the verb. This is new. We haven't done this. We haven't gone over this yet. We see this a lot in our liturgical texts. Somebody did something, then you find out who did it after the fact. In Je, this word means essentially nothing.
I like this one.
That just sounds nice.
Why couldn't you learn it?
But it does have a function. The function is it's telling you that this action that just took place, somebody specific did it. This is the person who did it.
Like by.
Exactly. It's sort of like, but usually you don't translate it that way because it's not a passive. I mean, you don't say he walked by the man, unless somebody was actually walking past the man. You would say the way you translate this,
Then
the way you're reading it, you read, oh, he walked. Oh, somebody did it. Who did it? The man. So the way you properly translate it is, the man walked. All of this means the man walked.
طب واللي فوق كان برضه ده manual؟
Exactly. It's just two different ways of doing it.
Which one is more common?
Both, actually. The one that's least common is to see this. Piromi Moshi. And how you put the noun in the middle, after the alpha, and before the verb, that's the least common. What's most common is Af Moshi, and then if you wanted to say who's actually doing Af Moshi, and Je Piromi. Very, very common. Follow? Are we good?
I can't see this in where in lesson 8.
8.1.1.2.
That is 8.1.1.2. So right in the middle here, that last
J,
form.
okay.
And there's a note right after it, right here.
Okay. Thank you.
So it basically says that this part in Je is used to put the noun, the nominal subject, after the verb. That's all it does. It's allowing you to state who it is without including it in the middle here. It's actually, as much as anything, it's a stylistic thing that was developed in Coptic. It's a way. It's sort of like in German, except in German it's part of the syntax that you can say the man in the house upstairs while he was laying down, and then you find out what the verb was. That's the last thing in the sentence. That's how it is in German. In German, the verb comes last in the sentence. So you sort of have to get used to it. Your mind has to get used to trying to understand what's happening without knowing what the verb is. Here, it's just telling you that the person who's doing it comes a little bit later in the sentence. Okay? I want to make sure that we're on top of this before we move on. Okay? Let's try.
ما هو احنا لو حافظين فيربات كتير هنقدر
Yeah,
I think we have some of them in lesson 2 or 3.
Verbs?
Verbs.
I give you a list. Let me give you a
Yeah.
list.
We have it.
We have a list.
Yeah, we took it last week.
That's,
No,
let
some
me
is
give
the
you.
word from before.
You have one? You have one. خدي دي.
دي ديت صح؟
أيوة. And you have it, right? Okay. Tamara, do you want any of this stuff? Or you know it all already?
I don't know anything, but they're better than me.
Of course. Or have Maria tutor you.
Yes.
Maria
He has to pay you, Maria. Huh? Nothing for free in this country.
Maria, yeah. You know how your dad's supposed to pay you when you mow the lawn? He pays you double when you do this. He doesn't pay you to do the lawn? Does anybody do the lawn? My dad used to beg me to do the lawn. Imagine that. Knowing that he would pay me, and I still didn't do it. Alright.
Are you gonna go back to the other markers?
The preposition, I'm going to get to that in a minute. You're talking about 8.2?
No, the markers. They said there's another marker, theory and cha.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that in a minute. I'm going to flip back to the other side. I just want to do a few exercises like this. So, we already know that we know that alpha doesn't change. Okay, so let's look at, I want to make sure I'm not giving you a verb that's not on the list. Let's do a few of these. Do you remember what ifyot means?
God.
Father. Exactly. Hemsi's on the list.
The woman?
To
Nancy?
sit.
Hemsi. Sat. The verb hemsi means to sit. So, past tense, the father did what? He sat. Remember, T is one of these verbs that's one letter?
Yeah.
To give. So, Fnoti, God. What did God do? He gave. Very simple. How about this?
You can close the door.
What's this verb?
Come.
It's the third one on the list.
Came.
To come. So who came?
He. No, she.
She came.
لا انا مش قصدي كده، هو مسمح لهم يلعبوا في مدارس احد للكنيسه الثانيه.
يقول لهم يمشوا.
How about this? What word is the verb in here? This is the part I want you to get used to. That's why I didn't put any pluses, so I want you to get used to parsing this part out. Which part is the verb? Mu is the verb. Exactly.
How did you know?
We died.
So how did you know?
Is the past.
Is the marker. So if you see it on the marker, that means the next letter, more than likely, is the person, the actor.
Okay.
The nominal, the pronominal subject. The person who's doing the acting.
So what is in?
What is that?
What's N? Which person?
Plural.
Plural.
We,
Which person?
We.
First person plural, exactly.
We.
So we. So we did what?
ازاي نقول
Mu
كده
die. We died.
The way Maria said it was funny.
We died.
We died.
خلاص باي.
We exhausted يعني.
We died. Bye.
It's not a word that normally we would say, right? If we died. How about this? Fine.
دي.
Who died this time?
He.
He.
واحنا لازم نموت حد.
الله يرحمه.
انت كل ما تجيب نفس الفيرب.
Okay, how about this one? This one is a little bit tricky because the letters all look like each other.
They.
Yeah, they.
They ate.
What did they do?
Good teamwork.
I need to get Maria a gift or a prize or something. She's right on top of it.
It's right there.
I know. They wom means to eat. We hear it in every single liturgy. They ate.
ممكن معلش تكتب وي وذي على جنب كده.
Sure.
Sorry.
No problem. So the letters. I is I. Ek is you, masculine. Okay. Re is you, feminine. Maria, what's he? Don't look at your paper. For him,
Re.
the five,
Yeah.
okay, is he.
See.
See is she. Okay. What about us? First person plural. What letter designates it? You can look at your paper.
N.
N, exactly. N is we. Okay. What about you plural?
Re.
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 No, plural, Miss Singular. 10
Ten.
is you plural. Okay, and what about they? It's one letter. It's the upsilon. They.
So,
These are all in lesson 8.
Mark, is it taken from the lesson number 2 or 3?
Anyway, they're very similar. And they're somewhat similar to the table that you memorized from lesson 5. اللي هو pef, his, تماهو, pes, her, أهو, she.
Yeah.
There's similarities. That's why it's helpful. That's why you build on the things that you
هو
learn.
الفرق بين ري وتن.
Re, anti.
انتم الثانية انتم.
Ten, antum. Or in Coptic, antum, there's no differentiation in gender between female and male. مش فارقة. Okay? This is a mess, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But you have it on the table in much clearer form.
Oh, we are low battery, I think, for the iPad.
We're not that much longer, it's okay. 10%, that we'll milk it. We'll milk it until it's done.
That's why I had it charging.
Huh?
That's why I had it charging. It was a 4%.
Oh, it was charging? Oh, my bad, dude. Okay, let's do one more thing, and then we'll be done for today. And that is now the use of prepositions with these verbs. And this is the part that's, I think, the most fun, maybe, depending on your perspective.
All the lessons are fun.
All right.
Right.
There's something called prepositions. We started learning some of them a few weeks ago. And we learned them for a reason.
The listen thing.
This is now part section 8.2. But we also learned prepositions in different word lists in a couple different lessons a little while ago. And the reason is they express much more clearly and more detail what you're doing with in a given action. So for instance, we learned the preposition gen, Maria.
In.
In. Did we learn this one?
Pigeon,
Upon.
Yeah.
Upon, exactly. Remember this one? Ebul gen.
oh, you told me last time.
If it's in,
According.
Ebul gen is
From.
From.
Wait.
from, exactly, or out of.
No.
Just because he said it, Maria.
According.
According.
We learned a number of them and we're going to learn a lot more. Today, we'll focus on 3 prepositions. Why? 3 specific prepositions. Why? Because they're often used with verbs of motion. Verbs of motion. Walking, climbing, that sort of thing. The 3 are yeah, that's right. Sha and ejen. Means to. You listen to something. You go to a place. Okay? Sha also means to, but it's used specifically, and if not only, with verbs of motion. This one can be used, for instance, with verbs of cognition, like you're listening to something, you're looking at something. Last one, ejen, means on.
وشاء اللي هي ايه؟
Sha, that means إلى. To.
يعني كده حاجتين.
So.
بس دي
sorry.
تستعمل إلى verbs of motion في التحرك. But ممكن تستعمل في verbs of cognition, or for instance you're looking at something, you're hearing something.
So
Okay.
A means two.
Means to, وشا can to, and sha means to, but they're used differently.
Okay.
So sha, to place. To, then a
Verbs of
place.
motion and to location, yeah. You,
Location.
But
air
then to
could
do
be
something, to do something like reason ولا مش reason؟
for what? For sha?
ايه؟
Sha, for instance, if I want to say I'm looking at the house, the way you say to is use this. I'm listening to somebody, I would use this. That's why I'm saying verbs of cognition.
And then ejen, what was that? I forgot.
As in on, or sometimes upon. Okay? Now let's do some examples. Okay.
هذا اسمك.
It is small.
Maria.
This is a complete sentence. So, what we see here is, what's this?
Past.
Marker.
Marker. The name, the actor. Okay? This is the verb.
Listen.
Okay? Now, this is the new part.
It's small.
You have meaning to. It's attached to the thing that you're listening to or that you're looking at.
So her
It's
mom-
next. This is called the direct object. This is very important.
هو بيكون في space ما بينها وبين ال.
No,
Preposition one word.
this is one word, and this is one word. Okay. This is called direct object. It is the receiver of whatever the action is. Okay. So Maria listened, or actually, heard. Okay? In English, we don't say you heard to somebody, you just say you heard somebody. Okay? But in Coptic, you need to mark whoever this person is that you're hearing. So Maria heard who?
Her mom. But
Her
we-
mom, exactly.
I'm not sure if she
Which Maria?
responds. We are not sure.
Like heard by the
يعني
past.
statement
This
deep
is,
research
so this
on
is
the-
combining several different lessons. We're combining how to say her or his or my.
Here is the question. You can, if Shah can replace a to.
No, not in this case. So this is the part I want to get to. Every verb can be combined with a preposition, and it can be combined with many different prepositions. And every time you combine a preposition with a verb, the meaning of the verb changes. It's a completely different verb. In Coptic, there's less vocabulary, but there's flexibility in how you put words together to mean something different. I'll give you an example. We just saw what sotem means. Sotem means to hear somebody. Okay? Sotem, and this is also very pertinent for Maria. Sotem, and this is a preposition we haven't taken yet. Sotem and sa means to obey somebody. It's very different. Obey.
It's not true.
She's a good girl, I think. Okay. There's some verbs that might have 10 different prepositions that you can combine. And every single one of them has a different meaning. Okay? There's a verb where you can say, instead of walking with somebody, you are actually fighting somebody or you're disobeying somebody, because instead of saying you're walking with them, you're walking against them. So in Coptic, that would literally, it's not literally saying that, but it becomes translated into you are opposing somebody. There's many examples like this. The idea is, as you build vocabulary, to learn these combinations together. Okay? Is there examples on here?
Insa, that's a preposition, or
Yeah,
that changed the meaning of the verb.
exactly. So the meaning of the verb really is not just this by itself, but it's actually this plus the preposition is what the meaning of the verb is. I want to introduce that a little bit later once we get to understand how you put together a verb.
إنسا يعني إيه؟
صوت الإنساء وبي على بعض.
Literally means on the side of, or behind somebody. So if you're behind somebody,
so
you're obeying them, you're listening behind them, and
It's a figure of speech.
it's a figure of speech. But there's a proper way to translate it into English. We use the word obey.
بس كله لوحدها has a different meaning.
Yeah.
صوت لوحدها
but ممكن أقولها برضو behind somebody يعني واقف وراه ولا
That's a different way of saying things altogether. It's very different.
And
For-
the E that says two, does it have a jinkum on it or is
No.
it no jinkum?
No. You'll see jinkum sometimes in books, and those are mistakes.
Okay.
Not just sometimes, often. Often. So for instance, a couple more and then we'll end for today. Because there's a lot there.
I think it will all start to sink in once we go over liturgy and stuff because it's repetitive and we know. Then it's all gonna like connect. Inshallah.
I think so.
ده الحاجة الوحيدة اللي نسوي فيها القبض. يعني إيه؟
Here's another complete sentence, which is very liturgical. Okay, so let's do this piece by piece. So, this is past tense, right? Who's doing it? A he. What's he doing?
No, sit,
Sat. He sat. Okay. Hejan. What did we say hejan means?
upon, on,
Upon or on. P thronos. Thronos.
the throne
The throne.
Throne.
Okay. Enje piuro.
of the king.
Not of. I'll show you what of the king means. What that looks like. Enje Remember what we just said a little while ago?
It's going with the
ملهاش معنى. So who sat on the throne? Who sat on the throne? The king sat on the throne. Remember, Nje? That tells you that the person who's doing the action, we're going to tell you who that is.
Oh.
So I'm showing you an example here where we're stating who the subject is way after the action itself was explained.
Can you write the explanation over it?
Sure.
please? So we can.
So he sat upon the throne. And if you see Nje, you can almost in your mind tell yourself, oh, Nje means I'm gonna be told who it is. And who is it? The king. Okay? So the way you translate this is actually the king sat on the throne. The king sat, very simple translation. It's just that in Coptic, stylistically, they want to make it more flashy. Not that he sat upon the throne, the king, no. The king sat on the throne.
Yeah. I
Or
thought
sat upon the throne.
Yeah, I thought somebody just went and sat on the throne of the king. So.
So this is I'll show you what the difference is. Instead of Nje, the way you'd say of the king,
Ente.
it's a different, exactly, it's one difference of a letter. Ente. Ente in Coptic means of. You see that a lot. Okay? You know, so and so and so, Ente Ephesus, Ente Constantinopolis. Okay? Ente Alexandrinus, Ente whatever city, Ente, of. Ebshiri, Ebshiri, Ente Efnoti, the son of God. Okay? So, if I wanted to say he sat on the throne of the king, of would be this. But that's not what we were doing. And I don't want you to be confused. I did this on purpose to show you how you can express who the subject is after the rest of the sentence. Or after the first part of the sentence. Does that everybody follow? Okay. In 2 weeks, God willing, we'll have a number of liturgical sentences from the liturgy that we're going to translate in here. As a way of reviewing.
But simple one.
Simple ones? ما they're going to be
يعني
simple.
الريفيجن هيبقى أثناءها ولا قبلها؟ يعني لوحدها separate ولا معاها؟ يعني
اللي هو إيه؟
ريفيجن هنعمل ريفيجن أو ريفيو.
We're going to do it in here. I'm gonna send you
You
that
a different lesson or the same